Hello everyone and welcome back to this Shizen Hogo-Ku Zoo here on Planet Zoo in our franchise mode. Today we are going to be building a new habitat, this time for our Japanese macaques. They are a type of monkey that is within the East Asia area, and this is an East Asia themed zoo. More specifically, we're kind of aiming more for that Japanese feel. They work perfectly in our zoo, and they're kind of more of the role model next to the pandas, which are some of the most popular animals here on our zoo. So this time we're going to be making a walkthrough habitat, which we don't typically do, and it's not the first one we built because the first one we built was actually in the Katahdin Zoo. However, that zoo was discontinued. Therefore, they are going to be the only active walkthrough habitat in this area, or at least for now. So this is coming out just as the Southeast Asia Animal Pack will be coming out. So this is coming out just a few days before, and we're getting ready for the new pack, and it's perfect because we've been working on this zoo the most out of any other zoo in our franchise series, so it works perfect. So I'm really excited for the DLC coming out. We have plenty more animals coming out, and this is already a big zoo. So I'm really excited. I want to try to get this zoo done because there's a lot going on in this zoo. And with that being, I do want to mention that this is being built in the area where, first off, I'm trying to fill in some of the dead space that is near our coffee shop, as well as some of the other habitats nearby. However, some of the nearby habitats need some help as well, including the gharial habitat and the saltwater crocodile habitat. I do want to move the saltwater crocodile habitat, expand it just a little bit so it has a little bit more room, because right now they do not have the room necessary. In addition, with this new update coming out, with the Southeast Asia pack, DLC pack coming out, the gharials will require, it seems like, some sort of depth. So we will have to redo their habitat as well so that they have the necessary room for that. So there's quite a bit to work on in this area. We have been fixing up this zoo quite a bit, as it was not so perfect toward the beginning, but this is franchise mode once again. I can't do everything that I want to. We have to make sure we are being profitable, that we are being wise on our money. However, we are making a lot of money now, so we are catching up on a lot of the decorations and a lot of the things that, we can improve upon, such as just the general layout of habitats. However, I digress from that. We have a lot to work on. Right now, as you see here, we are adding in buildings for our entrances. They are nice little entrances. They're just little huts. They don't really have any sort of purpose to them, except that it just kind of gives a little bit of a nice little entrance to this habitat. Otherwise, it would look a little bit weird. So this habitat is very, I guess the right way to put it is, it's very compressed, it's very compact. It doesn't really look like there's much of a landscape to this habitat, and that is the intention for this habitat. They are monkeys. Typically they're in enclosed spaces. They like to escape, as it has happened a few times, and I'll go over that later. However, we have to make sure that we are making it so that our guests will be happy and these monkeys are confident, so we don't have to worry too much about them getting annoyed with our guests. So a hiding spot isn't very necessary. So this area really isn't being used in terms of let's make the landscape nice. It is being used as just a habitat for these monkeys. So we do throw in two monkeys, obviously a male and a female, so that they can reproduce. They are being bought through regular currency in this game, not so much the conservation credits, because I couldn't find any under conservation credits, so I'm not quite sure if they do have that, or if that was just the timing in which I got them. So these monkeys are pretty cool. I'm really happy to have them in and have a walk-in habitat for some monkeys, especially since it is a very tropical area. However, these monkeys are mainly focused in the more of the temperate and the taiga biomes in the game. So they aren't really more of a tropical type of monkey. So as you will see, we actually have to add in some snow into this habitat, which is a little bit further away from what we intend for this zoo, because we mainly focus on the tropical. However, they are in a region in which we are focusing on. So we will establish that exception for this scenario. In terms of building the habitat, a way I did start off is I ended up adding in a lot of the food stations, water stations, and a lot of the enrichment items ahead of time. This was mostly easy just so I could establish, different terrain, differences in certain areas where I can maybe add some rock, maybe add some plants in certain areas where the terrain suddenly drops off and whatnot, because some of these enrichment items do change the status of where the terrain goes, such as some of the, I don't know if the food ones do on this one. I think some of the enrichment items that stand on the ground have to have an established terrain, flat surface area. So I would just want to make sure I got that out of the way. Otherwise, we do throw in a lot of plants ahead of time just to get a good idea of how things are working. I typically don't jump this far ahead when it comes to these types of habitats, just because I like to focus more on what it's going to look like in terms of terrain, how people are going to be able to view the animals, but this isn't really a concern in this one, considering our animals aren't trying to hide, and considering that these animals are monkeys and they like to climb everywhere. So I have to make sure that they're not going to try to escape. I do have some problematic areas in this area, so there's a lot of wall, and I want to make it a little bit more open. However, it just wasn't easy when it came with the red pandas next door, since they are still being housed there. I will want to move them at some point, considering they are having a lot of welfare issues. However, we're gonna keep it as is. The wall kind of just comes right in, so the pathway just kind of hits you with a straight wall if you enter on that side of the park, or the habitat, I mean. So it is a little bit strange right there. However, moving on to the fencing is a little bit different than I typically do. It isn't a very consistent fence. It has a lot of variable when it comes to the height. So I didn't want to make something that was too consistent and too restrictive, so I had the pieces be separated, and I thought it worked out quite nice. One thing that we end up adding in later are some lights that we integrate into those wooden posts, so people can see at night, and so you don't trip and fall, because light is very necessary at night if you're walking around. In terms of the climbing, we don't have to add in too much of the climbing because we have trees and we have some other pieces that these monkeys can climb on, and these monkeys tend to spend some time on the ground as well. It's just, they kind of go back and forth. They're not spending most of their time in trees from what I can understand, just from observing these monkeys in this habitat. One of the strongest issues that we had to focus on in this was placing in our coolers. So our coolers had to be placed in certain areas. I tried to do my best so that the guests couldn't see the coolers. However, it was very hard to do so, considering this habitat wasn't really built to withstand that. It's kind of more of an open habitat. There's nothing too special about it. Only thing that's special is that guests can walk through. So a lot of rocks were placed, and we just put the coolers inside the rocks. The rocks are technically supposed to be fake. They're supposed to kind of resemble pieces that have been added man-made, because we want the coolers to be hidden. However, we want this area to look very realistic. We also do place a small little corner a little bit to the right of our entrance that's closer to our monorail station. We also add in a little shelter here. It's not a very big shelter, it's just one that allows them to have some hard shelter. They don't need too much, from what I can understand, so we end up adding it into the corner so they can have a little bit of privacy, and so that they can have a drinking station over there as well. I decided to place it over here because otherwise we would have some dead space. I didn't feel like adding a garden. I wanted to make it so we could add a little shelter over here, otherwise things would be very, very tight throughout this area. And the shelter is very piece by piece built. It's not built off of a grid at all, except for the roof, which isn't really anything at all. Place some bedding inside of that, and it looks like a nice little shelter, nothing too special. However, when we come down to the little bit of nitty-bitty detail, we end up placing some wood planks throughout the area on the outside of our habitat. It's just a little bit of a trimmer and a little bit of spacing that adds a little bit of detail in between our path and walls, because we do have a little bit of dirt. So we will add some plants there soon. I do want to mention though, I end up adding a little bit of a different piece. It's a little bit of a wood cylinder that I don't typically use, that I painted to make it look very wooden-like. Unfortunately, the East Asia themed poles were climbable, and I had to find something that wasn't climbable because the game registers that the monkeys can climb onto those pieces and escape, which has happened a few times. So I had to use something a little bit different, and this is what I came up with. It's not the best looking, but it works out just fine. We have to establish a little bit of a difference when it comes to some corners, as it was very difficult to place in, so we just tried to manipulate it the best we could. Also, I don't know if I went over this at some point, but we ended up building this pathway for our staff to actually travel in between all the habitats. So we do have this small building here that allows our staff to go backstage and be able to do what they need to do. And there's a nice little small staircase over there as well. I don't know if I showed that off, so here's a little bit of a visual of just how things look. I think it looks nice. It has a nice little garden to the side just to kind of make things look nice, and we will establish more of the backstage area better in the future, but that is kind of just where things are going for that. However, going back, we end up finishing our trim, and we do add in a little bit of a garden, or should I say we add in some flowers, we add in some plants just to spruce up the area a little bit, and it looks quite nice. It does break up the sections between the pathway and the walls, so it doesn't look like you're just walking up the path and there's just a big wall next to you. So we add in some decorations in terms of plants, and we also add some items onto the walls. And we also add some items onto the walls on some of the little entrance building pieces to the walkways as well. Aside from that, we just add in some of their educational boards as well as some educational speakers, and then we leave it as that. There's really nothing much to go over in this habitat otherwise, so I hope you guys enjoy the visuals at the end. If you did like this video, please consider subscribing and liking the video, as I am a small YouTube channel, and I would highly appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave some comments down below if you have any ideas of what I should add in this to, and hopefully we will get some more content out to you guys shortly once the Southeast Asia Animal Pack comes out on March 30th. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good one.